Okay, let's look at the different types of tissue thresholds before and after injury. So you have these two triangles on your sheet, and we're going to be drawing on those triangles. So the blue is before injury, the yellow is after injury. So initially, when we think about a body part, we know that our brains automatically know how far our tissues can potentially stretch or be pulled. So like if you were to reach behind your back with your shoulder, your brain knows where does the shoulder get stretched to its limit before it would rip or tear. Okay, so like if you were to stretch your arm behind you, your brain instinctually knows that if you go beyond a certain point, you are likely to have an injury. And that's your tissue tolerance, okay, is that beyond. If I stretch beyond this, I will tear something or rip something. And so in order to make sure that you don't do that, before you get to that tissue tolerance, your brain gives you a signal of pain. It says, I'm going to protect you from going that far in the range of motion, and so I'm going to give you a pain signal before we hit your tissue tolerance and that you rip something. So we all automatically, we instinctually know how to do that, okay? Because people don't just go around to like overstraining themselves, okay? But the problem is, after injury, we see that the tissue tolerance is less. And we know this because we have studied how tissues heal. Tissues, for the most part, don't heal to the same strength. So our tissue tolerance is less after injury. That makes sense, right? The problem becomes is that normally all of our daily activities don't ever take us to our tissue tolerance, okay? Now notice if we put the ADLs over here, most of our daily activities, we don't even go towards the range of motion that's protected by pain, okay? Most of our daily activities occur in a very comfortable range of motion. This is good, right? Because we don't want to be having painful sensations all the time. But a patient who has had a chronic injury and maybe has a very active pain matrix that we've just talked about, ends up having their protected by pain sensation much lower down. And so the body is really being overprotective of this tissue. And notice that they're going to feel pain before they're going to feel pain in the range of motion before let me think how to say this. Before they are within the range that they could do a daily activity. So for example, our shoulder example, if you were to go and you were to extend your shoulder, you could extend it like at about 90 degrees, I start to feel a tinge of pain, 90 degrees of extension, I start to feel a twinge of pain in my shoulder. So that means that if I were to go to 120 degrees, I probably would tear something in my shoulder. But my daily activities only use maybe 10 degrees of shoulder extension for me to reach behind me into my back seat, for example. But a patient with a shoulder pathology is protected by pain at 5 degrees of extension. So they can't do the 10 degrees of extension. And maybe after the shoulder healed, they would only be able to do 50 degrees of extension before they hurt their shoulder and retore their shoulder. But you can see they don't need all 50 degrees. They only need 10, but at 5 degrees, the brain is protecting them by giving a pain signal. So we are going to have to work with this patient to move this line up above the daily activity line. So that way they're protected by pain maybe at 15 degrees, so they can still do their daily activities. This is going to be part of our rehab process, is to help the brain learn to be less overprotective so that a patient can do all of their daily activities.